Modern Dadhood. Modern Dadhood podcast.
Hey man, it's great to see your face.
I know, I saw a lot of you recently. Perhaps too much of you.
Some would say we saw too much of one another.
Of course, we're talking about our experience at Podfest Multimedia Expo in Orlando, where you and I were for several days at the end of last week.
A lot of days. We did a lot of days together back to back.
We can get back into Podfest, but I feel like we need to break just to do the formalities at the beginning of this episode.
That's fair. I want to hear you blast through it as cleanly and as speedily as you can.
Here we go. This is the modern...
Take it easy. Take a breath.
You're listening to Modern Dadhood. It's an ongoing conversation about the joys, challenges, and general insanity of being a dad in this moment. My name is Adam Flaherty. I'm a dad to two daughters, two beautiful, strong young women who are 9 years old and on the precipice of 6.
She's right there. She's right there, right on the precipice. Excuse me. My name is Mark Checkett. I'm also a dad, also to two beautiful, strong. What did you say? Beautiful and strong. Did you say anything else?
I said young women.
I'm a dad to two beautiful, strong, young twin boys. Nailed it.
We should also say Modern Dadhood is available on all podcast networks, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher, Spotify. Every episode can be found on our website, moderndadhood.com. And if you're a first-time listener, welcome to the show. Stick around till the end, and if you like it, kindly consider giving us a rating or a review. It would mean a lot.
And if you really like it, you can mail a $30 check to me personally at 123 Main Street.
Anytown, USA.
It's Anytown. That's ANY. No, yeah.
Who's the guest for today's episode? Senior Mark?
Our guest today is a gentleman by the name of Shane Burcaw. He's all sorts of things. He's not the least of which is I would say, leader, influencer, YouTuber. You listener, have probably come across some of Shane's content online. And he's here to talk about all sorts of stuff, including their IVF journey and what that's been like for them so far. Spoiler alert, they're at the beginning of their journey. So you might hear more of Shane on this show, maybe later, maybe in a later episode.
Well, I'll tell you what, you'll hear more of Shane in the next episode because this conversation was so rich. There was so much that we couldn't edit out that it had to be a two-parter. So this is part one of a two-part episode with our new friend, Shane Burcaw. All right, back to Podfest. Do you think we bonded on a new level? As friends and podcast co-hosts?
I mean, I will say that now having, had the experience of being I would say sort of violently woken up morning after morning by you taking a running leap into my bed,
into your personal space,
into my personal space. Yeah, I'd say that we're on a new level now.
Throwing a leg over you, giving you a little shake.
Yeah, I think all of that. I think with all of that, we crossed into a new type of relationship.
That's all I was hoping for. I know that you and I were in a lot of the same sessions. We broke up a little bit to try some different sessions, but I came back having learned a lot and made a lot of really great new friends. Who'd you enjoy meeting? Let's do just a few quick shout outs, Mark.
You know where I'm going with this one right out the gate.
Our new buddies.
Yeah. I'd like to give a quick shout out to Cycle Chats.
Emily and Stephanie of Cycle Chats.
They are some good people. And some serious rock stars. What do you have?
After my presentation, I was approached by someone named Jocelyn, and she's from Keeping Up with Chaos podcast, which I haven't spent much time with yet, but I'm looking forward to. She was wonderful.
Also at your your little thing, your cute little thing that you did. That cute little thing you did.
Okay, let's not be condescending to each other here.
What was that anyway? What was that all about? I know I was in the second row, but I wasn't really paying attention. I met a woman named Sophia, who is a founder and host of the As a Mother podcast. I pronounce it like that because it's spelled Mutha.
Great.
Their podcast is all about and geared towards single moms. What else you got?
I'm rattling through a few of them here. Hello to my new friend, Virginia Elder. Hello to Annie P. Ruggles. Last shout out is to Jody Krangle, who's a voice actor and has a podcast called Audio Branding, the Hidden Gem of Marketing. Also, it was really nice to see my old friend Rich the Magish from college. He's a magician, Rich LaBombard. We had a little hang in the parking lot. We sang some songs.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I think the highlight of the entire trip was when we walked Rich out to his car, out of which he pulled a 3-string bass guitar, and we played some Presidents of the United States of America songs and sang kind of obnoxiously loud in the parking lot of the Renaissance Orlando at SeaWorld.
I think it was a Git bass.
What did I say? Bass guitar?
Yeah, I think it was a Git bass.
I wanted to give one last shout out. Lauren Gaggioli and her co-host Jen Hoffman. They have a podcast called Magical Mindset Moments, wherein they guide parents through mindset lessons embedded in the Disney stories we know and love. What a great idea.
Love that concept. It's so cool.
What a great idea.
So thanks to the whole crew at Podfest for making it an awesome event. Let's go back next year. I'm just going to say I'm excited for our listeners to hear this first part of our conversation with Shane Burcaw. We had your friend Ryan Murphy on last year, and that also was a 2-part episode where he shared a lot of details about his and his wife's journey through in vitro fertilization, IVF, and it's been a very popular episode for us. Now, Shane and his wife Hannah are also going through that process. They're sort of at the very beginning, and it's going to be a very different process for them, especially if and when they conceive.
Yeah, Shane. I mean, Shane's, Shane and his wife Hannah, they're going to have their version of their journey. I mean, first and foremost, Shane has something called spinal muscular atrophy, which we get into, and he kindly defines for us. But that's certainly going to make for a unique journey for them.
Yeah, and you can get to know Shane and Hannah by checking out their YouTube channel, which is called Squirmy and Grubs. We'll put a link in the show notes, or you can go to squirmyandgrubs.com, where it kind of pushes you to their YouTube channel, to their podcast, to books that Shane has written. Did I say books? To books that Shane has written.
Books. And I think you did.
And to his organization called Laughing at My Nightmare, which is definitely worth checking out. And if you can spare any money, making a donation to that organization is a very impactful thing to do on the lives of people with physical disabilities.
A very worthy cause. Yeah, and in the interview, he didn't say this, but I'm going to say it for him. Squirmy and Grubs YouTube channel, 1.1 million subscribers.
No big deal.
That's no big whoop or anything. Well, I mean, is there any reason for us to beat around the bush, or should we just get to the interview, man?
Yeah, let's jump into part 1 of our interview with Shane Burcaw right now. Shane Burcaw is a leader and influencer in the area of education and advocacy for people with physical disabilities. Shane has written a number of books. He co-hosts a YouTube channel and podcast with his wife, Hannah, and he runs the organization Laughing at My Nightmare, which is a nonprofit that donates medical equipment to those who are physically impaired. Shane has been in a wheelchair or a power chair since he was 2 years old, and now at 31, correct me if I'm wrong, he's joining us here on Modern Dadhood to share his journey lead to becoming a dad. So Shane, thank you so much for making time to chat with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm only 30, so please don't age me another year yet. Actually, I'm so offended. I think I'm just going to leave.
Oh, damn it. We screwed it up right out of the gate.
I'm just going to put it out anyway. I'm going to put out the episode.
We'll put
Shane
it out in a year.
57 years old. And yeah. No, I'm happy to be here. Caveat, I'm not a father yet. So whether or not I'm going to be a good match here remains to be seen, but I'll do my best.
I think you'll be a good fit. So you and Hannah live in Pennsylvania, but right now you're in LA for a stretch of time. I assume that there's something cool going on there, some kind of project that you're cooking up, anything that you're able to share with us, or or you have to keep quiet?
So, okay, we actually live in Minneapolis.
What the hell? Google has really failed me.
Information, Adam.
You need to fire your research assistant. No, it is confusing. So I grew up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and lived there for the first 25 years of my life. Then I met Hannah. We were long distance for a few years because she was living in Minnesota. And then I made the big move from Pennsylvania to Minnesota about 4 years ago, where we've been living ever since. Right now, we are spending our winter in Los Angeles. Hannah and I are YouTubers and content creators, and obviously one of the places to be for that is LA. But the bigger reason is that the winter in Minneapolis is hellish, for lack of a better word, or maybe the opposite of hell. It's a terrible frozen tundra, and so we've been trying to seek out some sunshine, which is the main reason that we're out here in LA right now.
Good deal.
Do you think that might ever become a full-time residence for you guys?
You know, we are actively looking at property around here. So,
Wow.
Maybe yes, maybe no. A lot of Hannah's family is in Minneapolis, and all of my family is in Pennsylvania and the East Coast area. So unknown, but we do love it here.
Yeah. So are you telling me that like Central PA is not a hotbed for like YouTube career? Not
the Pocono Mountains, as far as I'm aware, don't have Wi-Fi. We have a lot of friends out here in LA who are also YouTubers, and it's nice to have people that understand what we're doing. Because back in Minneapolis, and really anywhere, when someone says to you, "What do you do for a living?" and you say YouTube, they say, "No, but what do you do for a living?"
Yeah, exactly.
And now that we've added in, podcasting and other forms of social media, their eyes just glaze over as we begin telling them.
That's
so
funny.
It's nice to have people who understand.
Yeah, I bet. All right, so before we get too far into the conversation, I think like if our listeners don't already know you by name or through your YouTube channel or now through your podcast, you live with something called Spinal Muscular Atrophy, or SMA. So I'm wondering if you can give those listeners like what's the quick sort of definition or description of SMA that you give?
Right. Quickest description: my muscles are shit.
That's quick.
Is my language okay here?
It's very welcomed. Yeah.
Keep it coming.
Just making sure. It's a genetic neuromuscular disease that I inherited from my parents, even though neither one of them display symptoms. They're both carriers. And so my body lacks the protein necessary to build and maintain muscle. And that means that as a baby, I never really grew very much muscle. I never crawled. I got my first motorized wheelchair when I was 2 years old, which sounds like a horrible idea to give a infant a heavy piece of motorized machinery, but alas, they did. And I've been using a wheelchair my entire life. As I get older, because I don't have enough muscle to really move much at all, my muscles atrophy and they become weaker as I get older. Now, big caveat there is that about 5-6 years ago, the first ever treatment for SMA was discovered and became available commercially. And because of that, I'm no longer getting weaker as I get older. But there's really no way to get back all of the strength that I've lost throughout my life. So I require help with everything from getting in and out of bed to feeding myself to putting my shoes on. And I use a wheelchair full time. My wife is my primary caregiver. The things that I can do kind of like physically on my own or drive my wheelchair, play video games, the important things, use my computer, my phone, anything like kind of in the area of my lap is my wheelhouse. But beyond that, I get pretty useless.
Well, I'll say that the sense of humor that you have about your situation, I mean, is amazing. And I'm sure that so many other people who have either SMA or any sort of physical disability, I'm sure are so inspired by that. And it makes your content both interesting and entertaining, and applaud you for your sense of humor. I think I appreciate that.
And I should say that, like, I don't ever want people to find me inspirational simply for existing. Like, I that can easily lead to a road where you're saying, oh, disability is such a horrible existence, but like, look at you, you're happy despite all of it. And that's not my worldview and not the worldview of many disabled people. I believe that living with a disability is not a negative, tragic experience, but rather a different experience that not everyone experiences. And so I use humor because it's how I was brought up to handle difficulty. And I think it's a helpful way of dealing with all the inaccessibility and stigma that surrounds disability out there in the world.
For sure.
So the theme of this podcast is obviously fatherhood. In the past couple of months, several months, you and Hannah on your podcast and your YouTube channel have been very open and transparent about your desire to become parents and the beginning stages of your IVF process. And I think it's something that is really interesting given your unique situation, your interabled relationship, and would love to sort of ask you some questions about it if you're okay with that.
Let's do it. The more pointed, the better.
Cool.
Perfect.
Well, I guess I first wonder, like, you have been physically disabled since you were born.
Yep.
Did you always know that you wanted to be a father someday?
Ooh, that's a good question. My future, this might get heavy.
We'll go there.
Until the advent of the first treatment for SMA, which came about when I was 23 or 4. Until that moment in my life, I lived with the understanding that I was getting weaker as I got older, and that the more important muscles in my body, like my lungs and my ability to swallow and speak, were going to become more and more affected by my disability into adulthood. I remember being in 8th grade and becoming curious about, I understood I was getting weaker, and I extrapolated that, and I thought, okay, what does that look like at 20 or 30 or 40? Right. So I Googled it, like any 8th grader back then would do, and mistake, by the way. The information I found, which was sparse, noted that most people with my specific type of SMA pass away by the age of 30. And that moment, that realization, colored my teenage and early 20s in a way that I'm still trying to wrap my head around. And it wasn't positive, as you can imagine. I kind of lived with this understanding that I'd be dead by 30. And so that was really the basis for like why I got into writing and sharing my story. It was like, I felt like the clock was ticking, and I needed to live and share and just take advantage of every moment. Right? Couple that with the social misunderstandings and stigma and misinformation about disability, all of those factors made for a rough kind of entrance into the world of dating and romance. You know, when I was in elementary school and middle school, and I began to have crushes on girls, and that was never reciprocated. I blamed it fully on my disability and their understanding of my disability. I internalized it, and I decided that I was not ever going to be a worthy or valuable partner to anyone. I believed that thoroughly throughout my teenage years, with no kind of awareness that maybe society and the messages that we get in our media was the flawed thing and not me and my body, you know? So this is my very long way of saying that, no, I didn't really think a whole lot about ever becoming a parent. I had to go through some like heavy stuff to even get to a point where I viewed myself as a worthwhile partner and someone that could be valuable to another person. I wish Hannah were here because that was all very much because of her and how instrumental she's been in my own kind of understanding and appreciation of myself. So as we're falling in love and I'm going through all this, and we begin like looking towards the future and looking at becoming parents, that was really the first time that I like practically thought about like, I can do this. Like, there's really no reason that I can't be a great dad.
Do you remember those kind of the first moments or the first time that you and Hannah started having conversations seriously about becoming parents and going down that particular road?
Yeah, I have to say, Hannah and I don't have many serious conversations. But when Hannah and I sit down and like really, no laughing, no just, we will now discuss whether or not we should be parents. Doesn't happen very often. Yeah. So that's not to say we can't be serious with one another, but it's all kind of, interspersed with jokes and all that. But, as we began becoming intimate in the early years of our relationship and talking about living together someday and what we wanted to do after college and all that, family has always been really big for both of us. It was one of the big reasons that I fell in love with her, was just like how close-knit and, supportive her family is. It really resonated with me because I grew up in a very tight-knit family, and I love that she would like prioritize them above other things. And she, when we met, like said, I definitely want kids. And it was a process for me to be like, oh, like, okay, well, I don't know if we can, because I didn't know. Like, I assumed I could, but hadn't ever really given it a ton of thought. And now, I don't think we ever had a moment where we were like, we're ready, let's do it now. It was just kind of like fantasizing about what our family might be like, going through all the hypotheticals. And there was no moment where we came upon any real hurdle in our minds, you know, like we can figure out a solution for every problem that we can imagine. And so I think from then on, our trying became a bit more careless, I'll say, our intimacy. We were just like, well, we're kind of ready. If it happens now, it happens. And not to get ahead of ourselves, but it didn't happen. And that was why we kind of began the whole IVF thing.
So you said, you know, in those sort of some of those earlier conversations, the thought popped into your head, like, you're not sure if you could have kids. So what was the process then for you? I mean, I maybe we're just jumping ahead into the conversation because it sounds like that's probably something that's came along with the IVF journey. But so just for a little tiny bit of context, my wife and I also went through IVF, and it similar to your story. It was like, well, are we going to do this? Okay, let's not be careful. And then it just didn't work. And so the transition towards the conversation of IVF happened. But, and then you start to explore all of these things. Is there something going on with me? Is there something going on with her? And you start to talk about genetics and biology and all that, the mounds and mounds of stuff that you have to start thinking about and talking about. But like, what was the process like for you sort of towards the beginning of that? Can we talk there? You know, was it like, let's look at your genetics. Let's look at your, you know, this was the focus on you more than it was her? Was it just, you know, let's look at the both of you equally? Like, what was the beginning of that process kind of like for you?
Okay. So as Hannah and I began trying to have kids, I knew that like physically it was possible because I know many other dads with SMA who have had biological children. So I knew that like on a, you know, biological level, it is physically possible for me. There were some doubts in my mind around the time that we began starting that made me worry about my ability to conceive. Is conceive the verb for the man? Yeah, you use it for both, right?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
I mean, yeah, whatever. Who cares?
I mean, you're referring to having enough like viable sperm that she could conceive, or that together. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
And so my reasons for worrying about my sperm, I'll just be blunt, were that one, that treatment for SMA that I told you about came with a warning that it might decrease sperm count. When that medicine came about, babies were not, you know, at the forefront of our decision making. It played into it. You know, we certainly were like, oh, that could be a bummer down the road. But halting the progression of my disease took precedent over my ability to have biological kids. So,
of course,
that was one. The other was that I have known for a long time that many wheelchair users who sit on their balls all day long can have issues with sperm count. I'm gonna go through a list here, but another one is that I am very kind of underweight. I'm 30 years old and I weigh 60 pounds dripping wet, and that's also on the list of things that can affect sperm count. Another thing, not to get too heavy, but I've had challenges with my alcohol intake over the years. Something that I've been very open about on our channel and everywhere, but that was another thing that I was like, oh, like, you know, when we began trying, I was like, oh, that's the thing that matters more now. So when our trying, when our casual and then kind of more concerted trying didn't work, all those reasons in the background made me feel like this was probably my deal. You know, Hannah has no illnesses or disability that we're aware of at this time. And so it felt like one of those many things on my list of possible reasons was probably the culprit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did an at-home sperm test, kind of like for fun. Like, I was like, I don't really know if I think this is like real science or whatever, but I did one, and the results were abysmally low, like almost not on the chart for any of my measures. And that was when we were like, oh, this is going to be harder than we thought. And that was what led to us like finding an IVF clinic and really learning a lot more about all of that.
And you've documented a lot of that on your YouTube channel, which for dads and moms listening is Squirmy and Grubs is their YouTube channel, and on the podcast Junkyard Mayhem. So I know that Hannah's also done some testing, but that seems to have been more medical in nature. Were those tests kind of happening at the same time, or was it you sort of did your home testing first, came away with the results from that, and then sort of moved toward we're going to explore IVF, and so now there's further testing for you that's in a more medical environment?
Yes, so I did the home test. Those results were awful, and then we moved to a more medical environment. We got hooked up with a great IVF clinic in Minneapolis, and they acknowledged my at-home test results, but they were like, but our systems are much more robust for analyzing those things. So they did a whole nother round of testing on me, which confirmed that my numbers were awful. And then they did another round of testing on Hannah. And she came out like, in tip-top egg health. Everything down there is good. And so it was obvious that my low sperm count was the main thing.
Now, did they kind of roll their eyes when you said, I did this home test, or did, and here's the results, or did they say, actually, those results are pretty accurate to what we found?
I thought I saw kind of a smirk in my doctor's eyes when I told her, but she didn't say explicitly. And I do know that like I did 2 at-home tests, and I know that one of them, the company is used by like the Mayo Clinic, but the clinic that we went to just had a lot more tests that they could do.
You didn't get the tests out of like the back of a van, like behind a Walgreens or anything.
I did. That ended up not being real.
Oh yeah.
So
surprisingly,
it's cheap, but they don't give you results.
Yeah.
Here's a question. So Marc shared that he and his wife went through the IVF process and ended up having twin boys. And obviously, multiples are fairly common in the IVF process. Is that something that the two of you were talking about? And have you tried to mentally prepare yourself for, if we conceive, this could be a multiples situation?
Yes, we've definitely talked about that. I think, our feelings about it are that with my numbers being as low as they are, and kind of like, we're not certain that my numbers are even stable. We don't have enough data to know whether or not this is where I always am or if I'm on the decline. So we're in that way trying to do what we can as fast as we can.
Right.
And so based on all of our testing, our doctor believes that they can get X number of eggs from Hannah, and they will have enough of my sperm to fertilize those eggs. And I know the math is like very confusing, but not all of them taste or whatever. And you end up with only a certain number of good embryos that they can then put back into Hannah. Our discussions have been that we're going to put in as many good embryos as they will allow. And I think they have rules about like, they won't do, it might be 2. I'm not sure.
Go visit the guy behind Walmart. He can do more embryos than that.
I don't know. I know that when Hannah listens to this, she's going to be like, Shane, we've talked about this.
Yeah.
You know this. But I don't remember off the top of my head. But we are open to the fact of like having twins or more than one. I think that we both would prefer a single human, just because, you know, we're getting our feet wet into the whole parenting thing. But we were just talking to someone yesterday who has twins, and they were like, you know what? For your first kid, get twins, because it's going to be a lot either way. And so, yeah, we're definitely open to it.
And just a reminder, this was part 1 of a 2-part episode. So please tune in to the next episode where we finish our conversation with Shane Burcaw. Oh, should I do the thing? And now for another... Don't interrupt me. Don't you interrupt me by clearing your throat. And now for another... And now for another rousing installment of Did I Just Say... Oh, man.
So stupid.
Did I just say that out loud?
Okay, this is going to be a very quick one because we're running low on time. I'm really just going to give you the line. There's no explanation needed. Okay. The line that I said at the dinner table tonight was, don't put mashed potato on your eyebrow. That was it. Yeah. And I was flabbergasted that I had to say that to a 9-year-old.
No, it was the 9-year-old. He was the older of the two. I 100% pictured the younger one.
Of course, a kindergartner can get away with that shit.
Oh, that's great. Friends, thanks for listening today. You can find us at moderndadhood.com. You can find us at all your favorite platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music. Where else? Give me another one.
Junkyard Mayhem.
Junkyard Pod. Well, wherever you listen, please don't forget to subscribe. How about a little rating and a review if you're, if you've got an extra second or two? We'd really appreciate that because it really helps our show, not just our egos.
And please tell one friend about the show. Tell them
just
verbally.
Just one.
You can find Modern Dadhood on social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. We have a website, moderndadhood.com, where you can listen to all the episodes. You can learn more about Mark and me. You could buy a t-shirt or a dad hoodie, contact us, send us an email through a form. All of these things are available to you.
Well, anyway, we also have, did you get to this yet? We have t-shirts and dad hoodies on the did you say that?
Oh, yeah, I said it. I really sold it.
Quick thank you to Casper Baby Pants and Spencer Albee for the delicious music that you hear throughout every episode, and to Pete Morris at Red Vault Audio. That's redvaultaudio.com for all of the he just got the mixing board and he does the knobs. All of that stuff makes us sound it makes us sound professional, to be honest.
Huge thanks to Shane Burcaw for joining us. Keep an eye and ear out for the next episode for part 2 of the conversation with Shane. And Mark, your last bullet is yours.
But just one eye and one ear.
Shut up. It's a turn of phrase.
Yeah, it sure is now. Also, thank you for listening.
Podcast. Just a modern.